On the morning everything broke, Maya held her son's hand a little tighter than usual as they stepped off the bus into the gray drizzle, her other hand clutching a folder thick with reports she'd finished at midnight after he finally slept, because the sitter had cancelled again and the landlord's warning note still sat on the kitchen counter like a threat that breathed, and she told herself, like she had every morning for months, that today she would be invisible, efficient, uncomplaining, that if she worked hard enough the world would eventually notice and soften. But the lobby lights were harsh and the security guard frowned at the sight of a small boy with a backpack shaped like a rocket, and Maya felt the familiar heat of shame crawl up her neck as she whispered apologies she had practiced, explaining that it was just for today, that Leo would sit quietly, that she had deadlines and no one else, and the guard waved them through with a look that said rules bend only for those who already have power. And up the elevator Maya rehearsed the speech she would give her supervisor if confronted, the one about responsibility and dedication and gratitude, while Leo, 6 years old and too perceptive for his age, squeezed her fingers and promised to be good, to draw and not talk and not move, and she smiled like a cracked mirror, because no child should have to promise not to exist. At her desk, she tucked him into the corner behind a filing cabinet with a box of crayons and a peanut butter sandwich wrapped in foil, and she worked like a storm, answering emails before they were fully read, fixing numbers before they were questioned, her mind slicing through tasks with the clean efficiency of desperation. But whispers traveled faster than productivity, and by noon the supervisor stood there, lips pressed thin, eyes darting from Maya to Leo, who had fallen asleep curled like a comma on the carpet, and the words came down like a gavel: policy violation, unprofessional conduct, liability concerns, each phrase heavy with the comfort of certainty, and Maya tried to explain, tried to compress her life into sentences that would fit between the rules, but the decision had already been made, and the HR email arrived before she reached the elevator: termination effective immediately, badge surrendered, belongings boxed by someone else's hands. And as she packed the small plant she'd kept alive through winter, she felt something inside her fold neatly, like a letter you don't plan to send. Outside, the rain had stopped but the sky remained hard, and Maya knelt to Leo's level, explaining that mommy wouldn't be going back upstairs, that it wasn't his fault, that it never was, and he nodded with the serious acceptance children wear when they sense adults are breaking, and they walked home with the city humming indifferently around them, every step measured against the math of rent and groceries and time. Days blurred into applications and rejections, interviews that praised her talent but worried about fit, nights where she counted coins and mornings where she pretended the cereal box wasn't light, and then, weeks later, an email arrived from the same building, a restructuring announcement, a new leadership team, an invitation to reapply for select roles, and Maya almost deleted it, pride aching like a bruise. But Leo tugged at her sleeve and asked why she looked sad at the computer, and she applied because hope is stubborn even when it hurts. The interview was scheduled early, and she wore the same blazer, pressed and brave, and when she entered the conference room the air felt different, quieter, as if listening, and then the door opened and the new boss walked in, a man with kind eyes and a posture that suggested he had learned to stand tall later in life, and introductions circled the table until his gaze landed on Maya and paused, not with judgment but recognition, and he asked gently if she had worked here before, and Maya nodded, choosing honesty over polish, and said yes, briefly, and he asked why she had left, and the room held its breath as she told the truth in a voice that did not ask for mercy, that she had brought her son to work one day because there was no one else and she was fired for it, and silence followed, not the awkward kind but the kind that rearranges furniture in your chest, and the man leaned back, exhaled, and smiled a small, private smile that surprised even him, and said, "I was that kid." He told them a story not from a stage but from memory, of a mother who cleaned offices at night and sometimes brought him along, how he learned to do homework under desks and fall asleep to the hum of fluorescent lights, how security guards became babysitters and conference rooms became playgrounds, how shame followed him like a shadow until one day a manager bent the rules and let his mother keep her job, and how that single kindness didn't just pay rent, it rewired his future, because he learned what leadership looked like before he knew the word for it, and when he finished, the room felt warmer, and policies suddenly seemed like tools rather than weapons. He turned to Maya and asked about her work, not in the language of gaps and liabilities but in the language of impact, and she spoke freely, confidently, as if someone had unlocked her voice, and the offer came not as a favor but as recognition, with flexibility written into the contract like a promise, and when Maya left the building that day, the city looked different, not kinder, but possible. Months passed, and Maya thrived, not because her life became easy but because it became seen, and Leo did his homework at a desk near the window after school, drawing rockets that now had destinations. And one afternoon Maya caught her reflection in the glass and saw not a woman surviving but a woman leading, and she understood that the world doesn't change all at once. It changes when one person remembers who they were when they had nothing and chooses to be someone else when they finally have something. If this story moved you, if you believe work should make room for humanity and that kindness can echo across generations, then don't just watch and scroll, subscribe to this channel, because every subscription tells the algorithm that stories like this matter, that compassion deserves a platform, and together we can keep sharing the kind of stories that remind us who we are and who we can be.